So I guess when I said that the last video was going to be the last video on our adventure game, I decided to break it up into two parts because adding in the items is now another element on top of what we did in the previous video got long enough, so we might as well break it into a separate one. So this, I think, is going to now be our final thing. We're going to take care of adding in items, and we're also going to set it up so that when our mini map moves around, it tracks where we've been. So we'll take care of that first, and then we're going to add our items in to the project. So first, let's take care of working on the mini map, and this is really now where we are going to currently, as we're putting in gray. So the way we have it set up at the moment is we are just changing our location to gray. We wipe any gray that's on a previous thing, and then we put it in. We're not going to be doing that any longer. We don't need to deal with that because we'll just make our current one gray. Any one we're currently at, we're going to then make that location have the visited class attached to it, which gives it that blue, violet, purple color. Now, this is going to require us to have, and you know, you're going to hate me for saying this, one more array as we do this. But arrays are really, once you get over your fear of like, oh my gosh, it's an array. Oh, it's an array. It's just a collection of items to store stuff. And I'm going to use this where, well, if I could type, and we'll just call this map visited. This is going to just store the value for each map location. It will be a 0 if we haven't been there before. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So our 9 locations. So it's 0. And as we visit locations, this array is going to update. And each location we go to will then switch and become a 1. That way, what we can do is just store that information. And again, we could have made more, two-dimensional arrays or put objects in the arrays that were more complex, that had like each square, which has our map, it would have a visited value, it would have the artwork. We could have built more complex things and accessed it that way, or we can just use multiple arrays. And in this case, we're just going to use multiple arrays to take care of what we're doing here. So what I want to do is say map visited, and we're going to take our current location, our map location, and we're going to set its value equal to 1. And before we do anything else, we're just going to log out map visited to the console so we can just see what's happening. So we can see our current square has that. So now if I say north, we'll see that now it's that next square. So each one of these values, we can see how it's changing. Now if we go west, we can see how that is updating. And now it's tracking where we've been, but I want the current location to be gray, and then where we've been to be purple. Actually, I kind of want to flip those now, but we'll go with it. We'll just leave it. You update your colors to whatever design scheme makes you happy with it. Now with this, I'm going to create a for loop, and this will be under so we're going to go back. So map mark, let's go back and look at what map mark was here so we can refresh our memory as we're working with it. So this is going to be each one of these divs. So map mark is all of these divs, the cells, these squares that make up that array. That's what map mark is. So what we're going to do is we're going to cycle through map mark. We don't have to, for what we're doing this time, turn it into an array to work with it in this element or in this thing. But what we're going to do is we're going to say if map visited, well, v not visited, for each element in the array is, so if it is equal to 1, then what we want to do is go map mark dot map mark I dot class name. All right, class name. I'm really having some typing issues here. Is going to be equal to visited, and then we take our current one and turn it to gray because technically where we're at would be a visited one. So now we're here. Let's go north. All right, almost. Well, you know, it would help if I typed it and named things correctly. Let's try again. Okay, and it's almost there. And God, my typing really did mess things up. Let's try one more time. North. There we go. West. Okay, so now we can see how it's tracking where we've been. It's keeping track of our current location. So things are good. We also aren't using this, so we can get rid of that. We don't need to log this out anymore here, so we'll get rid of that. With our minimap done, it's time to work on the item images. So we're going to be adding those up into this artwork section up here. So we have the first image that is part of the project. Now let's pop over here, and we're going to create a div to contain them. Give it an ID of item artwork, because, well, that just kind of makes sense for what it is. Now, what I'm first going to do is just to work on getting our images in and displaying properly so that we can see them. I am going to now put in another image here, and this will be our items, and then I have items, let's see, oh, we're not getting our good code completion there. Oh, it's not items. That would be why. There we go. So if we have things named correctly, we get good code completion. I'm going to use my placeholder, and I've decided to do a width of 100, and a height will be also of 100. And, oh, we forgot our closing quote. So when we see red, be alarmed. Okay, now let's save that. Let's take a peek. Okay, there's an item. It's popping up below it. Well, we're not going to have one item. We're going to have 3 items. So now let's take a look at what's going on. Okay, got 3 items. They're sitting there, but I want them to sit up here over my game world. I want them to be in the world. So this is where we're going to use some more CSS to accomplish that. This is where we get to have a little bit more CSS fun as we are working on positioning these into our project. So now if we go item artwork and position absolute, and now we'll put them down at the bottom, 0. Now let's see what we've accomplished at that point. Well, now they're at the bottom of the screen. But if we take a look here, item artwork is inside artwork. Now, one thing, when you position something absolutely, it positions relative to its parent or the last positioned element. Well, nothing has any position here. I don't see any positions going on. So because of that, we need to position its parent, and the parent in this case is going to be artwork. and we'll just give that a position of relative. Now we could do more, grid flex and all of that is setting these up, but hey, look, it now dumped them in. Sweet. So now it's put it in. What I want to do next is go display flex and then justify content, and we'll go space between. Now let's see what this looks like. Okay. All right, it's getting there. Now let's put a little bit of padding, 15 pixels, and then we'll go 7.5 pixels. Now these numbers, if we remember the space that we made this, it's 360. Each of these is 100. That leaves me 60 left over. So that's now setting up that artwork, and now we just want to go item, artwork, image, and then we can put a little bit of padding on that. The padding we'll put here will be 7.5 pixels, and once we do that, we can see how now it moves everything, centers them, gets them on screen. Now these aren't the images we want to see. These aren't the droids we're looking for. These aren't the images we're looking for, but we've now positioned them on screen. So now that we've done that, we don't have to look at them anymore because we only want images there when an item is there. So to accomplish that, what we now need to do is we need to go down into our items where we are displaying items on screen, and this is how we are going to display these items on our screen. So we're going to go down past use. Now we're in display. We're now on the items here that we cycle through these items. If the map location is this, the item is on the ground, we see that. And what we have to do is figure out what is the name. Now, if all the items had a single name, matches, knife, flashlight, that'd be great. But we have box of matches. There's spaces in there, so it gets a little bit trickier to work with it. Because what I could do, and we'll first just prove that this works by doing a simple object like the flashlight, is we're going to say let new pic be equal to document. So the document gets to create element, and the element we're going to create is an image. Now once we create an image, then we have to set its attributes, source, height, and width, and then we need to add that item to something. We have to append it so it becomes part of our document, because we make it, it exists in memory, but it doesn't exist in the document until we add it to the document. So it's a two-step process. Create, not a three-step really, create, attributes, and then append. So now we go new pic, and with this new pic we use set attribute, and it's going to be source, so src, and now the path is going to be, we'll use our backtick and then slash images, and now we need to pass in an item name as part of this. We have to figure out that item name as we're working with this, and this is where it's going to get a little bit tricky because some of our items have longer names than others. So what we want to do is know, so our name, let's see, so $, curly braces, and then .png, close my backtick. Now let's go back and figure out what we put in here, and it's going to be items, square bracket I. So this will work for the flashlight, It'll work for the knife, but it's going to fail if we try box of matches because that's not the name of the file, because that has spaces. We can't use spaces in names when we put things on the web. So this is why we have to do things a little bit different there. Now it'll be height, and even though it's a number value, we still put it inside our quotes. New pic, set attribute, and finally width 100. We probably should go new pic, set attribute, and finally alt, and it would be item art. Okay, because we should always have alt tags on images. And then we'll tell item artwork, which I forgot, we never did a query selector on item artwork, because if we go up here, way up top, we got our artwork. But now that we added item artwork, we never did a query selector on it. So let's do that real quick here. And then we'll go back and finish there. Item artwork, document, query selector, and hashtag item artwork. Let me just verify item artwork. Okay. Now when we're down here, inside items on ground, item artwork dot append. We can see there it now knows, hey, append child. What's the child we're going to append? The new pic. Okay, so that puts it on. Let's save this. I don't see error messages immediately. That's fantastic. So let's go north and let's try again. North. Hey, look, there it is. And notice the 3 purple ones all disappeared. Now if I take flashlight, I have it, but it didn't go away. So this part's working. It'll work until we get and try and take the box of matches. We'll take care of that in a little bit. But what we want to do is now when we take an item, then we need to work with this. Sorry, it's not when we use and take. What we need to do is each time we go, we need, same way that we have item on ground as the string, what we need to do is get rid of the ones that are there and then add items back. That will allow us, as we add and drop items in any order, it's going to keep updating what's there. So what we have to do is we have to take item artwork and clear it before we repopulate it with the current items in the backpack, because this goes through the current items that are on the ground. So if something's no longer on the ground, we don't want to have its element there. So a quick way to go about this is I go item artwork dot inner HTML and we set it equal to an empty string. And when I do that, it wipes the contents of it. So we're going to switch over here and go to elements and go to main and go into our game artwork. Item artwork we can see is currently empty. So now let's go north here, take flashlight, goes away, and now we can see it went away. Now let's go drop flashlight, and now it showed up. So now if I look here, we can see that image is there. Take flashlight, it went away. Now it's an empty div because it's now in my backpack. So we can add items, drop items, and it's going to work pretty slick. And it will work fine until, let's go south, south, west, take, oh, it's already failing. It's trying to show us the box of matches. It can't do that because it doesn't know. It's trying to, hey, look, image, source, box of matches, but the image is matches.png. So we just want that final word. So a quick Google search pulled up, this was one possible method here of how to grab it. So we have some different ways of going about it. We can use lastIndexOf, we can use split, a regular expression. Technically that's the ideal way of doing it, but we're not going to do that. So that is kind of where I started with it. And what I did is decided to create a new function for it just because it makes it a little bit easier. So function use last word, and we're going to pass into it a string, and then I'm going to say let n equal string last index of. Now you'll notice that last index of is similar to using index of, but we're looking for the very last version, and we're looking for the final space. And then I'm going to say let our last word be equal to that string, substring. Yeah, sorry, I was almost thinking I had to capitalize camel case, but I didn't, of that. So we're looking for the final substring of n, and then we need to trim this. And the reason we're trimming is if we don't do that, we end up having white space. We have that final space plus it. So if we grab the last index of world, it would include space plus world, and that would still break in our code. So that's why we use the trim method. And then the final thing we do in this function is we return, not return that last word. So when we have a function that returns a value to us, it doesn't just do something, but we send something to it, it gives us something back. So we're going to pass something in, and then it gives us this value back, which is the final word. So what we want to do here is let's go right after, well, we can go right here. So there's our new pick, right before it. That sounds good. I'm going to say let item name be equal to use last word, and then this will be items, the item, so as we're going through here, so we're grabbing the last word of that, and instead of here, we'll say item name. So we're now putting that in. Technically, we could just put all of this right in here, but I think it just makes the code a little bit more clear when we separate it out. So that item name, we're using the last word in it. Now let's save this, go back into our game, and now go south and west, and now I have the box of matches. So take box of matches, goes away. Now let's go north, take knife, let's go north, let's go east, take flashlight. Excellent, we can see our mini map is filling up as we've been to different places, south, and now let's drop the knife, drop flashlight, drop box of matches. So we can see we can put all of the objects here, north, okay, it's not there, south, they're still there. So the code is working. We've just added in this additional graphical functionality to make it look good. We have our different backgrounds working. So at this point, all that's really left is to start adding in some more CSS, maybe an overall background image or some better bordering, tweak the layout a little bit to make it more aesthetic. But from a functional standpoint, our game is done.